We have two lawmakers here with us to dissect and discuss the president's address. First, from North Carolina, let's welcome Congressman G.K. Butterfield, first vice chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. And from Kansas, Republican Congressman Tim Huelskamp. Gentlemen, how you doing?
Thank you. Good morning, Roland.
All right, then. Yeah. So the president laid out his agenda last night and also challenged Congress, if you will, at the outset by saying, look, it's time for action. Last year, y'all didn't do much last year in terms of passing bills. Are we going to see this Congress step up and do more to address the concerns of the American people? Congressman Huelskamp first.
That's a great question, and I appreciate the president outlining some problems. But what I didn't hear was the depth that those policies are not working. We have 6.5 million Americans in poverty that weren't in poverty when the president took office. We have room to grow. We've got to get our economy going again. In my opinion, our House has sent a lot of bills to the Senate. But at the end of the day, the president proposed many of the same things, which, in my opinion, have not worked. We've got to have an economy. We've got to create jobs. The focus last night was create more government programs, not jobs, in my opinion.
Congressman Butterfield, one of the things the president did say was this to Congress when it came to health care. So let's go ahead and play that. We have the soundbite. All right. Well, basically what he told Congress was, look, you taking 40 votes to repeal the Affordable Care Act. It didn't happen. Okay, we got the message. Time to move on to focus on issues like immigration reform.
Well, Roland, the speech last night was the best State of the Union speech that I've heard in recent memory. It was my 10th as a member of Congress. And let me tell you, the president has actually pulled off the Band-Aid of poverty and exposed it to the world. The Congressional Black Caucus has been talking about it for years and years. We have severe poverty in this country. 1 out of 6 individuals lives in poverty, and many of those are children. In my district, 1 out of 4 lives in poverty. And so the president's speech put a spotlight on poverty and laid out a plan for getting people to work, raising the minimum wage, and growing the middle class. I was so proud of the president's speech. Now it's time for action, and I'm calling on my Republican friends to join with Democrats, and let's get some common sense legislation passed. We've got to get people back to work. We've got to raise the minimum wage.
Congressman Huelskamp, Congressman Jim Clyburn has something called the Clyburn Amendment, where he says spend 10% of government funds in those counties where 20% or more of the people have lived below the poverty line for 30 years or more. 2/3 of those 474 counties are in Republican districts. And so I would think that on issues like this here, Republicans would recognize and Democrats would recognize that there are broke folks in this country, people who are working poor, who are white, who are black, Hispanic, Asian, Native American, who are Republican and Democrat. And so what can Congress do on your side of the aisle to deal with income inequality, the working poor?
Well, first we have to back up, and where have we come from? We're going in the wrong direction, and in my opinion, what the president proposed last night was the same things we've been trying for 5 years.
Such as?
Another program, more spending, more unemployment checks.
Actually,
we need jobs created, not more checks come out of Washington. But the policy numbers are this: we have 13 million more Americans on food stamps today than when the president took office. I think we need a different approach, and we need to grow the economy by encouraging entrepreneurs, not sending them more regulation.
But one of the things, though, he said last night, Congressman, for both of you, he dealt with job training. He said, quote, I asked Vice President Biden to lead an across-the-board reform of America's training programs to make sure they have one mission: train Americans with the skills employers need and match them to good jobs that need to be filled right now.
The president's talking about 21st century jobs. The jobs that we had 40 and 50 years ago are no longer relevant. We've got to we've got to educate a new generation of workers. There are jobs right now that employers cannot fill because they don't have trained workers to do it. The president's talking about the future. He's not talking about the past. We've got to invest in the future. We've got to get people back to work because the American people deserve to work. They deserve a pay raise.
Congressman, one of the issues that the president also talked in the past about was rebuilding this country, its roads and its bridges. You look back 15, 20 years, that was a no-brainer for Republicans and Democrats, yet that bill is not advanced in the House. It has not gone anywhere in the Senate. That would put significant dollars into local communities to rebuild areas that need to be rebuilt. Can that get through the Republican-led House to go to the Senate for him to sign into law?
Well, the president had his major stimulus the first 2 years, Democrat control of the Senate and the House, and they didn't spend much of that on these types of programs.
Actually, in that first stimulus, that was almost $800 billion. 40% of that was tax cuts.
No.
It was America's stimulus. It was America's
go to
stimulus.
Infrastructure.
Right,
it didn't work.
But
that's what I'm saying. I don't know why the president chose not to do that.
40% were tax cuts. But go right ahead.
Yeah, and all of it was borrowed money. But at the end of the day, we have to grow the economy. We can't spend our way out of this. We've tried that. But back on the job training, that's long overdue. We've got 50 or 60 different job training programs. I know the president's made this proposal. Republicans have as well. But you have a House and Senate that really likes particular programs. But I agree with the president on the job training. We need to move that direction. We
Roland,
can simplify and target.
I remember the stimulus. I was here when we passed the stimulus. Let me tell you, this economy was on the verge of going over the brink. And it was the stimulus that stimulated the economy and started positive job growth in this country. And had it not been for the stimulus, we would have gone into a depression. Let me tell you, we have poverty all over the country. It's not just a Democratic poverty problem. It is a Republican problem as well. We have poor people living in every congressional district in America. And you mentioned the 10-20-30 plan that Congressman Clyburn has talked about so often. That's very important. We have communities all across America who have 20% poverty rates that has existed for more than 30 years. And what we want to do is to increase federal investment in those districts by 10%.
I don't have much time, about 30 seconds. So, Congressman, tell me what would you like to see work on to focus on income inequality that you want Congressman Butterfield to work with you on?
Well, there are a number of things. As far as food stamps, we noted there's 13 million more Americans on food stamps under the president than before he took office. We need to encourage work in our food stamp program. We need to provide that, give some folks some incentives, change our job training programs. I think we can do that. As the congressman mentioned, we have jobs looking for workers. We need some training, but we also need Washington to lower the regulatory threshold, the things that they're putting on, particularly
We're voting on the Farm Bill
businesses.
today. We are voting on the Farm Bill today, and I hope my friend from Kansas is going to work with us. There's an $8 billion cut in food stamps, but it does reauthorize the program. We've got to feed people. We've got to help our farmers and ranchers all across America. We'll be watching how the Republicans vote today on the Farm Bill.